This is going to be the top 4 most overpaid players in the NBA today. Specifically guys who aren't that great, not like the Mike Conleys of the world who are good but just get paid a little too much. Also, I'm not going to mention like Kent Bazemore or Rajon Rondo, or at least not focus on them that much, because I already mentioned them in like my worst starters of the year video, and I don't want this entire video to just be a replication of that video, although one guy in here is in both of them because, I don't know, I had to mention him. And we're going to start this thing with Evan Turner, who, after having legitimately 2 good seasons with the Boston Celtics, where he was a 6th man, a playmaker for them off the bench, the Portland Trail Blazers decided to give him about $17 million, or even more than that, each year for the next 4 seasons, which comes out to some total that I don't feel like looking up, but it's a lot of money. They thought that he as a ball handler was going to be someone who could help out CJ McCollum as well as Damian Lillard and allow them to move off ball a little bit more and make the Portland Trail Blazers offense just a bit more difficult to defend, and Evan Turner has not really been able to do that, as whenever the ball's not in his hands, the other team just leaves him open, and then they just go double team CJ McCollum, or they just go and double team Damian Lillard. And so Evan Turner has always been an awkward player. You need to give him the ball, but because he's Evan Turner, you're not like entirely comfortable with doing that, because when you have Lillard and McCollum, like, you'd rather they have the ball in their hands, but then Turner's useless if the ball is not with him like a decent amount of the time, but then when it is with him, he'll also like over dribble. It's a whole circle of emotions that all just comes back to, why the hell are we thinking this hard about Evan frickin' Turner? Now, if he was making $10 million a season, it would still suck, but it wouldn't suck as bad. And Turner is one of several contracts that the Blazers have committed to guys who just don't really deserve it. Whether it be he or Myers Leonard, or to an extent Allen Crabbe. I mean, Crabbe's a good player, but he's getting a little too much money as well. So, I mean, that's the NBA salary cap for you, but shout out to Evan Turner. He's making a whole hell of a lot more money than I am. And if I was offered that much, I would definitely take it too. We're going to start with the Milwaukee Bucks and Greg Monroe, who was known in Detroit for his inside scoring, his post-up ability, and pretty much that and nothing else. He was not super athletic, and his defense was never really a thing. But given that he and Andre Drummond really got in each other's way in Detroit, there was a belief that both of them could take off if there was only one of them on the Pistons. Drummond definitely took off, but in the case of Greg Monroe, the team that signed him, the Milwaukee Bucks, it's just not a very good fit, and what he's being asked to do, and for being paid about $17 million, it just doesn't really add up. I mean, he comes off the bench and plays about 20 minutes a night for this Milwaukee Bucks team. A team that wants to give the ball to Giannis and run pick and rolls and go crazy in transition and have Jabari working in the low post or in isolations and all that good stuff. Greg Monroe's low post game just does not fit with these guys at all, and he's one of the big men who's just been kind of forgotten in today's NBA, the slow-footed big guys who can post up. Teams just don't want to really do that anymore. They'd rather take a guy like Monroe and turn him into a small ball 4 who can shoot threes. And you could say, well, Monroe's not necessarily overpaid, he's just on the wrong team. I mean, these guys have been trying to trade him from, it seems like, the moment they signed him almost, and no one's going to take him on, so his skill set in today's NBA is just not worth how much he's actually being paid. He's splitting a lot of time with John Henson, who's more of a defensive center and, in my opinion, a better one for the Milwaukee Bucks. The one thing I do like about Monroe is his passing. He averages about 2 assists, and they do get it to him in the high post sometimes to get the action going, but given that he just doesn't really make you too much of a better offensive team because he can't really shoot and he can only score from inside, and he's not good defensively, just doesn't really make you that much better overall, man. Now, he does have a player option for next season. Who knows if he's going to accept it or decline it. I don't know if Monroe can get $18 million in the open market right now, so he might actually stay just for the money. Who knows what he's going to do. Number 2 is Joakim Noah of the New York Knicks. This contract is a doozy, man. 4 years, $72 million. Starts at $17 million this year. Ends up at $19.2 million when he's going to be 33 years old. And Noah has just simply not been the defensive player that he once was. I mean, at one time he was one of the best defenders in the league because he could just move around the floor so well, and he could switch on to sometimes any position and be okay. And he was also a very good rebounder on both sides of the floor, great rim protector, as well as an energy guy. And then offensively, his passing and ability to finish inside was just so good. This year he's shooting like 50% from at the basket, which is really damn bad for a big man. And then, of course, defensively, he's just not what he used to be. Luckily, the Knicks do have a couple of other options at the center position. There's Hernan Gomez, who seems really intriguing as someone who's pretty crafty down low with pump fakes and spin moves and hook shots with both hands, as well as perhaps being a real rebounder. And there's also Kyle O'Quinn, who's hopefully can at least be something. But the Knicks are going to have to eat up this Noah contract that gets worse as he gets older, and he has not shown any real signs that it's going to get any better. And this is only the first year. Now, our next one, we're going to head to San Antonio, and we're going to talk about Pau Gasol, who I have mentioned, I think, yesterday a little bit, but we'll dive into it more here. Gasol makes about $16 million this season for the Spurs. He also has a player option for next year, which I don't see why he would decline that. Offensively, I mean, Gasol is still pretty good on offense. Like, he can score inside. He's been very good on his mid-range jumpers. And he's also shooting over 40% from 3. He's only taken about 1 a game, but offensively, Gasol is still there. The thing is, defensively, it's pretty damn ugly. And this is going to catch up with them eventually. Like, when they get to the postseason and they're going up against more athletic teams, I just don't see how Gasol has a chance. I mean, they lost to the Thunder last season in the playoffs because of their lack of athleticism, and that was with Tim Duncan still being a damn good defensive player. And now you go to Pau Gasol, who's the exact opposite. To throw some stats at you here, when Pau Gasol is on the floor, the opponent's offensive rating against the Spurs is 106.5. When he's off the floor, it's 102.3. So they're immediately 4 points better defensively when he's off the floor. And then if you just watch the games, I mean, you just have to put Gasol in a pick and roll and you pretty much got it figured out. His rim protection isn't horrible just because he's tall as hell, but when we're talking about being able to defend and move around the floor well, Gasol's just going to have a really tough time once the postseason comes around for these guys. And I think that's really the root of why he's overpaid. And I do understand that the Spurs are still one of the best defensive teams, but I mean, that's what they were last season. And then, again, OKC, a team that was younger, way more athletic, they couldn't deal with it. And you're not helping yourself with Pau Gasol being on your roster. In terms of what would be best for them just like as a team in a magical world, Gasol would either decline his player option or just retire. Tony Parker would retire, and then they could just sign Nerlens Noel and re-sign Patty Mills. I think they will re-sign Patty, but besides that, I think Gasol and Tony Parker are going to be on this roster next season, which means they're going to have like no money to do anything with in free agency. And that's too bad because it's taken up by some dude who can't play defense. So that's going to do it. The top 4 most overpaid players in the NBA. Why was it not 5? Because I'm a weirdo. That's why.